And
that's unusual. I don't know if we've got, there's no one there.
well, thank you for inviting us this year.
Pleasure.
It's been really nice meeting all of you. It's been really lovely. We're not academic at all, so we've done no papers or anything. But we do know.
Did write some notes for this, and then I left them at home.
We left them at home. But we have talked and chatted. So we just thought, from as practitioners, we are kind of improvisers and musicians. And 5 years ago, we got introduced to Paul and Oliveros' work. For a mutual friend of ours, and we fell in love with the practice, and then within a year we became practitioners, and we often do workshops involving this practice, and it's taught me a hell of a lot of things, and still teaching me a lot of things as well. And one thing that really stuck in my head was the idea of sound being presented in the landscape that could always be there. So I came up with this project with Hannah about bore auras being one of the oldest instruments known to us as humans, and that if you played it in a landscape, would the landscape remember that it was always there, it was present, and that hearing could transcend like us being on this planet. So that opened up a whole kind of thought process about how Pauline's work was kind of informing us about our own work and what we were investigating as practitioners. So after that project, me and Hannah had this discussion. We actually moved house, and we were lucky enough to move next to Wanstead Flats. So we'd go there and do some deep listening and some meditation and stuff, and you could hear a skylark. And then from listening to the skylark, we was really interested in this bird, because apparently, it's not apparent, it is extinct. Well, it's not going, it's going extinct.
It's on the red list.
It's on the red list.
It's in decline.
It's in decline.
It used to be a lot more.
So we had this idea that we could help the skylark in our newfound home by listening with it. So we posed this project of listening with the skylark, and it was just a moment of trying to kind of explain the kind of the acoustic commons that everyone has the right to hear the skylark, and the skylark has every right to be able to sing its song on this flat and be there. And that started this. You can jump in whenever you feel
Okay,
like.
yeah. So, well, the listening with.
Yes.
I think that word was really important, and that it's come up in the last few days. And this idea of positioning ourselves, attempting to position ourselves differently to nature, in that we all are nature and we are coexisting with nature all the time. Our bodies are ecosystems in themselves, and like we've talked about with the sloth, and I think we have a lot of similarities with the sloth, actually, that maybe we don't know about or think about. There's lots of organisms living in and on us that we have a mutually beneficial relationship with. So the listening with the skylark was this, part of this attempt to resituate ourselves, and the hope that maybe just by listening with something in the same place as something that was under threat, that maybe that act in itself could create some positive action, which.
And then through the research of the skylark, there was many groups campaigning to safeguard the ground the skylark was nesting in, from mainly dog walkers and us humans. So and this year they ring fenced it for the first time, and we feel like maybe a little small smidgen of a hope that we had some kind of direct.
That we were part of that.
Of this
change that
commons.
did actually happen.
Well, I think we did.
I think so. I mean,
there was a lot of people moaning, saying that these guys, they really want girls. They need protecting. And then this year they have, which is amazing.
And there's been this long campaign. For a long time, London Corporation have refused to put these fences
they just
up
want to put
around
love box there.
So the fact that they appeared at the beginning of the year was a really great surprise. We were like, oh. Because also last year, so we go there a lot a lot of mornings I'll sit there under a particular set of trees and we sit and listen, and we hear the skylark. And last year I felt like we definitely stopped hearing it much earlier, and reading these campaigners' documents of the numbers, they were saying that actually only 2 breeding pairs had been seen. And so, it was a real thing. It was like, well, if there's only 2 breeding pairs and neither of them managed to breed, which is quite likely, that could literally, I felt like we could be listening to the sort of the last song of this
Also, it's like
bird in this place.
The closest group in London, aren't there? There's some in Richmond.
Yeah, but they're closest to the city for sure, because you can sit on the flats,
yeah.
you can see the skyline right there. It's like, but anyway, they're singing again this year, and
particularly that piece we've always broadcast live. We've never recorded it.
So it's a live stream.
Yeah.
How they look like?
They're small,
lovely,
brown. They're kind of nondescript. Then they don't have any.
Hope they're very tasty.
But the way they fly, I mean, we don't actually have a clip to play. But anyway, they have a very distinctive song. Probably some of you know, and it's they fly upwards as they sing. And there's theories about why, but one of them is that it's to kind of create a decoy from their nest, because they nest on the ground on top of grass. So you can hear them, and you can often hear them and not see them. And you're looking up in the blue or the clouds, and they're very hard to spot because they go so high. And so they keep singing, and eventually they dive down. But they used to be in flocks. You would see them apparently. I mean, I never have, but they were called an ascension or an exaltation. And there's a lot of text has been written around them, which is actually very kind of religious, and the heavenly, the sort of heavenly song. And there's a whole a book that someone's collected all the different. I mean, not all, because I'm sure there's more, but a lot of different poems and pieces of writing about the lark across time, although mainly sort of from the 1700s to now. So within this live stream, I and Stephen would read kind of little pieces of text that kind of come in amongst the song. And I mean, as a way of sort of trying to interrogate our human response as well to the skylark, but we've kind of put it on high as well, and we, in a sense, doing this, have done the same thing, but it's like, how can that kind of revelatory, that's not the right word, but anyway, that feeling of kind of exalting something have an actual real world impact.
So I love the word you use, attempt, because it is an attempt.
Yeah.
And then that, once lockdown kind of kicked in, we found that actually like listening with became like something we could extend onto land and not away from kind of one species. And then we decided to do a series of kind of estuary listening with, where there was like land, like Swanscombe right now is basically really under threat. It's an SSI, and it could become like a big Disney water world, Disneyland.
The London resort.
So we've again attempting to kind of record from all different angles with different kind of microphone techniques to kind of build a picture of a non-human perspective of a space that actually just needs not like I don't know, it sounds from my perspective like a voice for people to listen to, so they stop seeing it as nothing, and it isn't a water park. It should just be left alone and enjoyed for what it is, and we've been investigating that. We've done 2 now, haven't we? One for Channel Sea, which is a river that's basically been a sewer for most of its life, and it's now being like kind of cleaned up, and to give that kind of a voice so people can see it beyond what it's always been seen as a sewer. And actually it's very important for lots of different species, especially the German hairy snail and other wonderful creatures that live above and below the water. And the other one was in
the Blackwater Estuary.
The Blackwater Estuary, which is now under threat from a massive big nuclear power station.
After the Bradwell power station was decommissioned, so there already has been one there that was decommissioned 20 years ago, and now they want to, and not even, so build it kind of next to the one that's still obviously there because it can't be completely. But I could just read the text.
Yeah, please do.
So this is the kind of narrative that we've written around these pieces. Listening With is a series of sound works that deeply listen to non-human life as an act of embracing and raising voice, and an attempt to relocate our ears beyond our human perspective and into the multi-species dimension. Tracing seasonal outlines, seasonal. Finding our way through a landscape by deeply listening, reinforcing, reimagining, reinstating and repurposing what is heard. Close listening and ears under skin murmuring, seeking, peeling, pulling, teasing, sounding terrain and subterranean. Tentative steps gradually walk towards full immersion and embodied presence. So listening with the Blackwater Estuary, which we're going to play you a little clip of. This piece visits the Blackwater Estuary from both sides at Tollesbury and Bradwell-on-Sea. Working with a variety of microphones, these layered field recordings and voice seek to contribute to the acoustic commons and bring listeners to an area of natural heritage currently threatened by the proposed Bradwell B nuclear power station, 15 years after the old station was officially defueled. A journey from newness to becoming, a resting and a migration, and a sense of urgency in the face of this new threat to the area. Microphones both above and below the water, alongside geophones and contact mics, capture a multifaceted perspective encompassing unheard vibrations. Our listening and walking within a landscape becomes a reflection of our interior landscapes, the impulse to go inward in contradiction with the burgeoning springtime. Listening and walking to capture a timelessness and yet still move forward. Words form a sensory exploration of body feelings and tensions, recounting these as animal qualities, experiencing the voice within the landscape, a singularity in connection with what is around, meandering towards a plurality, a oneness, the feeling that comes from a place of expanded listening where the eye melts into the field of sound and into other sounding bodies, where language fails, vocal sounds take over.
So should we listen to the first 5 minutes of this? I've done like the beginning, which I want to touch some stuff you were talking about earlier, like with like kind of field recordings, but then with the voice narrated in a kind of a nice soft radio kind of voice. But then it's really nice, but it kind of explains.
And it's only mono because of our beautiful analogue listening centre, so it'll just be one ear experience.
It's a 1 ear experience. So I'm going to play
You
it.
get 2 ears.
Are we on? Are we in?
2 monos.